All right, welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Thanks for being here tonight. Tonight's topic is clarity is power. Got a special guest here. His name is Matt. He's one of my clients in the mezcal industry. He's got Racho Mezcal, and then that is RACHO Mezcal. Matt, while you're here, by the way, these calls are recorded so people can watch it anytime. Why don't you put in the chat your website so people want to check it out? They can go there. He's now online, so if you want to get a bottle of Racho Mezcal, support the guy. He's working his tail off. Great new business in the last year, and it's been a complete pleasure working with Matt. A lot of things that we talk about in here, Matt and I have been talking about to help build his business and get him on the right track. So I love this topic, clarity is power. And the reason why I like it so much is because it allows us, or it forces us to define what that clarity is. And this really goes back to some old school principles that we teach in the class or in the community quite a bit. And I know oftentimes it might seem like I'm beating this with a stick, but I cannot express enough how important it is for you to start with your values. Okay. And I'm going to use another live example with a coaching client that I have. This particular client, we're going through career transition from senior executive at a Fortune 500 company into what could be retirement / slowing down as a career entrepreneur, and then kind of figure out what that next phase in life is. And typically when we think about next phase of life, it's like, I want to vacation more. I want more time off. I want more money in my 401k. I want to have more control of my life. And oftentimes you don't know what that control means to you until you establish your values. And it's been interesting because I had a new client sign up last week where we're going through the value system, and immediately within the first week, after writing down what his values were, which he hadn't really put much thought into it before, he already has been making massive decisions of what to do and what not to do. Matter of fact, he was going to buy 2 business franchises in the state of Washington and canceled them both because he realized that neither one of those businesses fit into his long-term values and his goals. So as a reminder, I'm going to drop in the chat for everybody. First document is your top 3 values. You can drag it to your desktop, screenshot that, whatever you want to do, but reminder to write down your top 3 values. And here's where I hope it will take you. Because again, what we're talking about doing is getting to an area of clarity where I'm hoping that your values will take you, and write these down because I think they're great topics to create out of these values. Is first and foremost, you've established your values, figure out what your areas of focus are. Within those values, what are you going to focus on? Okay, so if it's more time to be with your family, how are you going to redirect some of your time and energy towards that value of being with your family more often, right? So you're going to start looking at work schedules. You're going to figure out what you're making per hour, what you need to do to accomplish less time on the job or more time invested into production so that you can turn around more money. And that will, again, give you more time with your family. So think about what your focus areas are. Okay, map those out. I've got, this particular client's got 15 areas of focus that will help achieve the values, right? So you've got values. Within those values, write down what your priorities are within those values, okay? I like to have my values in order of priority, and I've said it a dozen times. I've got it written down on a piece of paper here, so I see it every day. Yellow pad across the top. Here you go. God, family, health, giving back, time, and business is last. Okay. So when I look at my areas of focus, what am I giving the most time and attention to? And what are the results of that? And then you'll know where you need to tailor a little bit of that time and attention to hit those values. The next thing is, after you've established your areas of focus, develop what your to-do list looks like. Okay, and what I would do with that is I would break that out, and I'm going to give you another tool to work with here, if you've been in, Jocelyn, have you been in Sean Whalen's group before? Yeah, you were. That's right. We talked about that. Well, I've got a similar tool where it breaks down your activities into bite-sized pieces. So what you'll see on this tool is that we've broken down 30-day segments, 3 boxes per segment. And the way that this tool works is, for example, if production and business is one of the pillars, you got a 30-day box. Below that, you've got another box, which is the next 30 days. And the last box is another 30 days. And the part that I've kind of pilfered from Sean, which he loves when people steal his stuff, is I like breaking things out into smaller time periods, and 90 days seems to be a great time period. When you look at like 75 hard, that's just under 90 days. You can accomplish a lot in 90 days, especially if you break that out into 30-day windows. So when you're thinking about your values and you break out your upcoming to-dos, try to break those to-dos out into pillars of 30-day increments to equal 90 days total, right? So if I want to get healthier, as an example, and that's my immediate to-do, I'm going to break that down into 3 30-day segments. So the first 30 days, I'm going to focus on getting my diet right, starting a workout routine, kind of the initial starts. The next 30 days, I'm going to really hone in on what that looks like. And hopefully the last 30 days, I've developed some momentum and I'm starting to see some results. Okay. Then you can decide, all right, am I going to add another 90 days to this and build off of what I've started? Right. So these 90-day windows help develop patterns and momentum towards achieving that initial list of to-dos. Okay. So we've got our values and priorities. We've got our areas of focus. We've got our to-do list now. What are going to be your challenges to do those things? And by identifying what's going to challenge you, you'll be able to already see in advance what your hurdles are. So maybe you just feel like, well, I'm too busy to do all this stuff. Okay, so your challenge is time. Okay, how do we combat that challenge of time? Well, we've talked about in the past being a student of your calendar. So we'll just give a quick example of how we combat time and replace some of that with positive energy. So becoming a student of your calendar, first of all, I would suggest having an electronic version of a calendar. If not, go to Staples or whatever and get one of those big paper calendars that you can write on and fill in all the boxes. Okay. Start to fill out all day, every day, your appointments. So what will happen in a sense is that you'll start to see the white space that you're available to do other things. Okay, so if one of your challenges was time, now you become a student in your calendar, you start mapping out what you're doing every single day, and then you identify that white space and say, okay, how can I utilize that white space to attack my focus, which will help achieve my values? Now, you'll also start to identify maybe some time wasters or some things that you're putting on your calendar that may not have the same value that you thought it did, and you could eliminate those and replace it with something that's going to help achieve your goal. Okay, so again, the goal is to map out what your challenges are so you can attack those. Okay, maybe your challenge is you want to lose weight, you want to start working out, and you have nowhere to work out. Okay, well, let's figure out those challenges. What kind of workouts can I do without a gym? Can I afford a gym membership? Where's the local gym at? Do I need a trainer? So by identifying those challenges, you can start clicking off the box and seeing what you need to achieve your physical fitness, right? By the way, we've got some great people in here that can help every aspect of physical fitness and supporting all those things. So now that you've identified your challenges, it'll allow you to continue to move forward on that focus, right? And then finally, the fun part is through the process, what did you discover? What was the epiphany about writing all this out and your challenges, your to-dos, your priorities, and your values? What did you discover about yourself? And based on that discovery, are you happy with where that's going? And it really allows you to kind of go full circle back to what your value is and say, is this really a value of mine? Is all this time, energy, effort, and calendar management worth that? Did the epiphany tell you, okay, I'm in the right spot? Or did it say, you know what, maybe this isn't really that important to me. I might want to shift this value a little bit. Okay, so going back to clarity is power. Now that's one exercise to get you there. You know, you're gonna say, Jim, well, what's the power in the clarity? Okay, I did all these exercises. Where do I go from here? Well, really, when you think about it, is when you start mapping out your value and where you're heading, when you get to the finish line, this is where the power comes from, and that is your happiness. That you know that the work you put in is getting you exactly to where you want to be. Going back to the client that decided not to buy the franchises in Washington, he made that decision Friday morning. He made the calls through Friday afternoon. He called me on Saturday, said, Jim, I feel so good about where I'm at now because I was pushing myself to do something that I didn't really want to do. Now, all of a sudden, he's taking the power back for his life because it was consuming him. It was consuming him the last 2 months about purchasing this. He was going to the bank, trying to get a loan. He was trying to decide if he was going to pull out $500,000 out of his bank account. All these things for 2 months was consuming him, taking away his ability to do other things. At the end of the day, once he decided, okay, I'm not going to do this, he felt the relief of, that burden, which put the power back in his hands. Now, how did he get to that slight epiphany in the morning when I had a coaching call with him? He's been talking about buying these businesses for the last 30 days with me, but he's been working on it the last 60 to 90 days. I said, look, if you really are serious about buying these businesses, have you been there yet? No, I haven't been. I've got to go, but I've got so much on my plate. I said, well, you're looking at spending $500,000 Monday of next week. You need to fly out there and look at these properties. And he realized by me putting him on the spot that he really didn't want to buy them after all. And that created a chain of action that day where he had the clarity that he didn't want it. So it put the power back in his hands. I texted him this morning. He's like, man, I'm off to a great week. I can focus on what's important to me. And that's the other businesses that he already owns in his home state of Colorado, right? So again, defining that clarity, it'll give you the power and the strength to do what you continue to do. So, Rod, do you want to weigh in on that for a few minutes? Hi, Rachel. Good to see you.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'll weigh in real quick just because your topic is timely in my own life. This Wednesday, my wife and I have cleared our calendars and we're just spending a gratitude and reassessment day. It's been 1 year officially on Wednesday that I went in for major surgery. And so we cleared our calendar. We've got a year behind us, and now it's time to reassess. How have we come through this? Are we on track to do what we intended to do after this? So it really is important to reevaluate, even if you know what your goals are and your values are. It's not a bad thing to ever reassess them, realign them with where you are and what you're doing. And I think it's just it's a good reminder for all of us. It doesn't matter which stage of the business process we're in, whether we're looking at buying a business or we're involved in or juggling several. I know most people on here are juggling several different businesses, which is exciting. But the other thing that that really stood out to me was the happiness. And one thing that I've always used in my life is follow the peace. When you're making those major life decisions, do you have a peace about it? That going with the gut, and that gut instinct is where you follow the peace. And like your client, Jim, he didn't have a peace about it. And that's where you've got to draw the line. And it's hard, especially if you've already started a train rolling down the tracks to take a different tack and say, no, I'm putting the brakes on this. But we have to know when to put the brakes on to guard our own happiness. So great topic so far. I love where it's going. Thanks.
Yeah. So when you're looking at clarity too, you can use any one of the exercises that you may have done in the past when you're looking at purchasing something. I'll just give you a good reminder. Get a basic piece of paper, draw a line down the middle and across the top, on the left, pros, and on the right, cons, and start drafting it out. And what I did with this individual is we started to do that. And then what I recognized about him, and by the way, he used to be a pro football player. And I said, look, you don't do anything half-assed. When you do something, you go all in and it's hot and heavy. So what I want you to be clear about is when you go and buy these businesses, know that you're going to go all in. And these businesses are, 4 states away, talking about Washington versus Colorado. If going all in on these like you do with everything else, I can assume that that's what you're going to do. What does that do for your other values and goals? And for him, that was a bit of an aha moment. So don't forget, part of defining clarity is doing the pros and cons. And you can pro and con everything that you're doing so that it allows you to kind of peel that onion away and go a little bit deeper on each topic, right? So you can do that with anything. If it's health, right? If you're like, okay, well, I want to focus on my health. Well, what does that look like? What are the pros and cons of your current health program? What can you be better at? What are you realistically going to do? What do you know about your own habits and behaviors, right? Like you hear us talk about 75 hard a lot, but you're probably not a 75 hard person. Well, don't put on there you want to do 75 hard. Probably not a good fit for you, but list out the things that you'll do as the pros and the things that you won't do as the cons, and then the benefits of both. So don't be afraid to peel that onion back on everything that you develop in terms of your values and your goals. By the way, as I've said before, once you've established those values that we talked about and the priorities and your to-dos and your challenges, then you can start really establishing some great goals. So thinking a little bit outside of, just this topic alone and some of the people that are on the call tonight, Rod, you mentioned a lot of us are juggling several businesses at once. Okay. Oftentimes we get wrapped up in how many businesses we are juggling and what makes the most sense for us. And there's a point where you've got to decide, okay, I'm really good at this, and I've picked up these 3 other, businesses. Are they worth my time, energy, and effort? Are they giving, do I have clarity on those? Because if not, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, And if I am in the right spot, maybe what I'm doing most of my time is the wrong thing. So we need to constantly be evaluating how we're utilizing our time, what we're giving our time to, and how much time that actually is. I love Rachel says once in a while, this is a low priority business of hers, right? We've got a few things we're working on together. She's like, I'm not going to stop doing it, but it's a low priority, which means that's going to get the 5 minutes a day instead of the 5 hours a day. What's great about that, and as a reminder to everybody, that 5 minutes per day will develop into something significant eventually if you don't give up on it, right? And if you have it on your list, but you don't have to beat yourself up because you're not giving it more than a low priority amount of time. Okay. If it's something that you're giving it a low priority time, and even that becomes a burden, maybe it shouldn't be on your list at all. And it's time to drop it off, move on, and not do the business anymore. So again, establishing that clarity about each thing that we do will allow us to be smart with our time, our businesses, and where we spend our energy. So, Rachel, I know you kind of jumped in late. Do you want to weigh in on anything? Can we hear your voice? You've been in Japan. It's been so long since you've been on a Zoom call. She doesn't know where the mute button is anymore. We're going to let her slide. All right. Rod, any more comments on that before we move on?
Yeah, it's amazing. Every time you bring this up or you start talking, it's like something else is triggered in my head. And it's the reevaluation thing is so important. You were just saying, well, maybe it shouldn't be there. And I know that you gave up school board. You were on the school board, you were in local politics, and I know that was important to you. But at some point, it outlives its usefulness. You make new connections. And if we look at even our business opportunities, it's like, what have we learned from that? What connections have we made with that? And we have to be okay with moving on. And I think that's transitioning from one to another, I think is where a lot of people get stuck. And instead of saying, I have gained valuable, I know you've got networking, you've established a huge network that started with just school board, at the state level, and it gets you into state politics. So everything is there for a reason. Nothing is wasted. Your time is not wasted on anything. And that's the other thing with businesses. I know we have a lot of people that have sideline ventures, And a hobby can turn into a business, but it doesn't mean it has to be a big business. It's that scalability. You know, while you're home with your kids and homeschooling, I know we've got several people that are still in that stage, and it's like, okay, are we just putting this on a back burner, or are we letting it simmer? And there's a difference between taking it off the stove and letting it simmer. Because if it's simmering, we're still working on it. You know, we're still putting effort into it. We're still putting maybe not a lot of time, but enough time to keep it alive. And that may be enough, because when it is time to scale, you'll be ready because of all the other things you're doing that are prepping you for that. So it's never a waste.
Well, and by the way, part of gaining clarity oftentimes is exactly what we're talking about, and that is removing some things from our life. And when something's negative, I always say it's time to cut the draggers. Cut that negative out. I think I've had a few conversations with a few people on this call that that's exactly what we had to do, is cut the draggers or the negativity out of our life. The same thing goes for a business that's dragging you down or isn't working, or it's not part of your value system anymore. Don't be afraid to cut it out. Make those tough phone calls or those tough decisions sooner than later and say, okay, I'm done here. And not only will you get the benefit of feeling that relief, but that should slingshot your momentum into a direction that you are more positive about doing. And it'll also lessen the burden, just that mental burden of it being on the back of your mind. I was with a good friend. He's been very successful in life. And I asked him, I said, hey, I'm on the HOA where I live. And I said, I'm always dealing with stuff. I said, I'm struggling with wanting to be on the HOA so that I've got some control, but at the same time, it's a time suck. And he goes, Jim, never get on these boards. He says, just be the squeaky wheel, because the board is there for you, right? And although it was a very slight message, his point was received well by me, because I realized, you know what? I don't have to be the guy in control. I don't have to be the president of the HOA to make a difference or to get what I need out of my community. But I can just be the squeaky wheel when there's an issue or when I need something, allow that to arise and take care of that. Now, what that simple suggestion did for me is it relieved a ton of brain power or that mental burden that I was having for one more task that falls underneath my leadership, right? And so I was able to remove that and get rid of it. And all of a sudden I was freed up. So think about that when you're looking at your values and having some clarity in your business and where you're going. It's okay to release some stuff and be like, okay, I need to free up some brain space here. So, all right. That's the bulk of my topic. Love to answer some questions. Jocelyn, Wayne, I see Sam's here. So, or at least hear what's going on with you. And Rod, if you want to start or bring anything else up, now's a good time.
Yeah, I'll get started. Just again, this topic is loaded because it's everything we talk about. And we've done it, we talk all the time. We've paid the dummy tax so you don't have to. And those of you who have been on here for a while know that even a year ago, Jim and I were teaching school. We were teaching a high school class. We wrote the curriculum, and we were spending our days teaching high school students and trying to impart some of our knowledge and enthusiasm for business and all that, and doing things right and relationship building. And we didn't go after it for the second year. Things we had to reassess. And it doesn't mean that we dropped that. There were all kinds of good things that came from that, but we had to refigure, reconfigure, remodel the energy that we were already expending. And the flip side of that coin is you may want to start putting more energy into things that matter more. It's not just cutting the draggers, it's where are you going to put that time? Once you cut the draggers, where is that time going? And that's what this exercise is so important for. And Jim, I'll have to talk about it on another thing, because you just reminded me of how I got into local politics because it was literally someone knocking on the door saying, hey, they were a squeaky wheel. They were being a squeaky wheel, but that's all they were doing was squeaking. And I had bumped up against something that was like, okay, this needs more than just squeaky wheels. This needs action, and that's going to require leadership, which is going to require my involvement.
Yeah.
And again, it was a great time suck. It was terrible. There was so much going on, but in the end, it was worth it. And I've always said, I can do anything for a little while. I can do anything for 30 days. I can do anything for a year. Watch me, right? It's just a matter of committing to that, saying, okay, if I'm going to do this, put your mind to it, put your elbow to it, and make a commitment to it and say, I can do it. It's only for this long, and then reevaluate. So I think it's just absolutely a phenomenal way to approach life and every part of our lives, from relationships to business to our finances. Always be reassessing, reevaluating, and putting your time, effort, money, and love, your passion, putting that where it's going to give you the greatest return of investment.
Yeah, good point. I'm going to add some new structure to our group, and I think Rachel and Rod will agree with this. And that is, I'm getting this from my time working with David Meltzer. So when I worked with David Meltzer, gosh, it's been almost 6 years ago now, as when he was my coach, I was able to call him once a week for 15 minutes. And when I first connected with him, and he told me that, he's like, Jim, we're going to connect for 15 minutes. We're not going to highs, hellos. How's your family? What are you up to this week? We're going to jump right into what the business is. And, you know, me being an efficiency guy and wanting to extract the most for my money, literally, I always developed a set of questions or some things that I needed when I had those 15 minutes with Dave. And what I would do is I would send them those 5 things or whatever it was just before the call. We'd get on the call, I'd walk through the items, and then he would either answer those questions right then and there, or he would email me whatever the request was, like, hey, can you introduce me to so-and-so, or can you refer me to this, whatever, or, you know, can you help me with this? So what I would like to offer and suggest that all of our members, whether you're here tonight or you listen to this later, and I'm going to start putting in the text, is come up with some things that you need help with. You can text it back to the group. You could text it to me privately, or you can bring it here and drop it in the comment section. But come up with 3 or 4 things, or whatever the number is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you're working on that you need help with on a weekly basis. And let's make sure that these calls aren't just one of us talking heads on a subject that we've selected be the entirety of the call. Let's make sure that we're helping you progress in something that you're doing. I don't care what the question is or what the request is. We can either say, no, don't know that, or we'll get that answer to you, or we'll give you the answer right then and there on the call, via email, etc. But let's maximize the value that we're bringing here. And I'm not talking about the Q&A that you see these guys do on Instagram. Ask me anything, I'm on a flight type bullshit. I'm talking about whatever's going to get your business moving in the right direction, or you know, your objectives are, if it's, you know, trying to get some clarity on your values. Let's ask and answer real, live, meaningful questions that will help move your business. Okay. You know, if you're working on a big project that has a lot of components, maybe we respond to a couple things that gets that project a week down the road, and the following week we answer a couple more, and eventually you've gotten to where you need to be. So let's put some real meaning behind our time together outside of our topics and our talking heads. We're happy to talk, but I'm happier when I can bring you value. So when you get off this call, I know you've got some answers and that you can start working on whatever it is that you're doing. And I can hear the results next week. To me, that's more powerful than just a topic. So, okay. I don't see any hands up, any questions. Our topic is pretty clear. That's clarity is power. So I'm going to kind of wrap that up. Jocelyn, it was good to talk to you earlier this week. Hopefully we can help solve some of your issues. I think we've got that underway. And Wayne,
hey, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep. Go for it.
All right. This is Wayne talking. All right. So, anyways, Rod, congratulations on that year, brother. That is sweet. So,
Thank you.
Super awesome. So, anyways, yeah, no, Jim said earlier in the call about us thinking about getting a river property. And so this call really struck home, because it's like, what do we really want? you know, is it a good investment property? Is it a good location? Is it this and that? And, you know, basically I need to dive deeper into it. I talked to Jim about it a little bit, and he's like, yeah, let's go for it. And I'm like, hold on a second. And I've been kind of lagging on that one too. So, but no, it really kind of is, it's really trying to put clarity into my brain of whether or not this is a good thing, or you know, save the money and try to go somewhere else or something, you know. But I really need to just put that pros and cons paper down, and that's really going to answer the question, and then also the numbers. So
Yeah.
but
So Wayne, here's something interesting about that as it relates to this topic tonight. Okay. Samantha and I have been talking about a river property for a year, right? A place that we could get away from the winter months, you know, for a week or two at a time and get a break from the heavy snow, right? So we have clarity on what our needs and wants are. So when something pops up, like, you know, that particular property, it was easy for me to say, hey, let's dig into that. What does that look like? Right? Let's put the numbers together. Now that might determine a yes or no, but I didn't have to think about it. Not that it was a question, but we already had that clarity. We've already done the exercise. So now it's time for you to do the exercise, not just on that, but on everything. And again, that's the point. Now, in this particular scenario where the power comes from, let's just say that property was a 24-hour opportunity. And you called me, you're like, Jim, we got a great opportunity here, place at the river. This is what it looks like. This is how much it is. What do you think? Are you in or are you out? Well, we already have clarity on what we want, right? So that clarity gives us the power to make a decision right then and there, or within that 24-hour window. And I didn't have to hem and haw about it for 2 weeks if we didn't have 2 weeks, right? So always understanding where you're at and where your strengths are at, what you want. Again, that's where that power comes from, and the clarity. So go back and do your pros and cons. Let's talk about it. It could be all
right
cons and could be a big fat no, but you won't know it until you start doing the work.
exactly.
Yeah.
So right on, guys. Well, thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate it.
Yep. Good deal. All right, Rod, any closing thoughts?
No, I think everybody, the one thing I will tell the group, I like, you know, getting it dialed in. And that was the whole point of having a topic for the night, you know, and when you get that heads up call in the afternoon and you know what that topic's going to be, it should get your mind going. Whatever the topic is, it should get your mind going a little bit, saying, hey, what is it I need to know about that topic? You know, if it's not covered, what is it I need to know? And ask those questions and make it relevant to your life and your business. So it's a trigger. The trigger is for us to make sure we're here and accountable and offering something of value. But you have an obligation also to fall into that. You know, what is it that you can gain most from this? We want your return on investment to be the optimum return. So do a little bit of extra homework when you see that topic come up, or give us the topic and we will work it in.
Well, the
That's it, Jim.
Yeah, the coaching's only as good as your questions, and we love to answer your questions. Okay, Jocelyn, for example, I'm picking on you because I can see your face. You know, for example, you're working on a project right now. You're looking at making some changes. You might have a few questions about that. Like, hey, I want to make some changes here. What are the top 3 things that you think I should change or add or do differently? Or what would you like to see? Right? And you can throw those out in advance and you say, hey, I want to revamp my social media. What do you think that should look like? I want to promote my book for the next 12 months because I want to sell more copies. How do I do that? What are some of your suggestions to sell more copies of my book as it relates to my social media profile? All of a sudden, Rachel, Rod, and I go to work and we come back with 20 ideas for you. And then you go through all those ideas and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. I like these 5 and those 15 maybe later, right? All of a sudden you've extracted that value from 3 different brains to help you, right? So those are examples on how everybody can be prepared and ask questions in advance and maximize this time. Man, I would love if we went over our time frame because we're answering all the questions that came through. To me, that would be not only exciting, but I would feel good about the value that we're bringing back to everybody. So let's focus on that. I'm going to start reminding people in the text, start sending in your questions, you know, as soon as we remind you. That doesn't mean you got to wait until Monday every day, but let's make sure that we're maximizing the value of the call. So good to see everybody. Wayne, thanks for your comments. Jocelyn, good to see you. Rachel already took her face off the screen. Hadn't seen her for a few weeks. So Rod, I think you're up next week. So everybody, you know how to get a hold of us. If you need us, talk to you soon.